OAuth is a protocol to give programs access to a user's data from a third-party source without knowing their password. For example, an application might want access to a user's Facebook photos, but shouldn't need to know the user's Facebook password in order to get them. OAuth is actually a family of standards, but this video is only going to go into one illustrative example to give you an idea of how it works. So let's suppose that we want to write and create an application, cat_adder, which takes a user's Facebook photos and adds a cat to them. Now, cat_adder is a program that we want to build for some reason, and it needs to access the user's Facebook photos, but we shouldn't need to get that user's Facebook password to do so. So OAuth allows us to do this. OAuth is what you see when you see third-party applications integrating with services like Facebook. So for example, this approval screen, when I want to integrate Spotify with my Facebook feed, is using OAuth. And the way that OAuth works is that we have three entities. We have cat_adder, which is the program that we want to build. Then we have the user that wants to use cat_adder and has a Facebook account. And we have Facebook, which has this user's photos. Just to use terminology consistent with OAuth terminology, I'm going to refer to cat_adder as the client and Facebook as the service. So at some point before the user finds cat_adder, cat_adder has asked for an API key from Facebook. And Facebook might verify that the client isn't actually violating its terms of service, and it gives the client an API key. Then, at some point in the future, the user decides that they want to use the client for some reason, and they want their photos to have cats on them. So the client tells the service that it wants this user's data, and it flashes its API key to request it. But of course we shouldn't allow the client to just get the user's photos, so what Facebook does instead of sending the photos is it sends the client a request token, which is something that tracks the client's request for the user's data. The client hands the token to the user, and then the user hands it to the service and tells the service their password to verify that they are in fact the user that has permission to approve this request. Now, this is the really important part. The user isn't telling the client or cat_adder their password, they're telling the service or Facebook. So at no point does cat_adder have the user's Facebook password. The service asks if it's okay for the client to see their photos, and that question usually comes in the form of a dialogue like this, where Facebook is asking if it's okay for the client to see certain things. So it's essentially asking if it's okay for cat_adder to see your photos, and the user says yes. And then Facebook verifies this request token by giving the user back the request token and a verifier, which is proof that the user entered the correct password. The user can then pass this back to the client, and note that the step of passing back and forth the request token and verifier typically happens automatically behind the scenes, so the user would only see dialog boxes asking if it's okay for cat_adder to see their photos. The client then gives the request token and verifier back to the service as proof that the user said it was okay for them to get their photos. And Facebook verifies that these are actually valid and gives the client an access token, which is like permission to get this user's data. These access tokens typically expire after some long delay, and the user will also usually have a way to revoke access tokens from clients that they don't trust anymore. So now when the client wants to get data from the service, then it flashes its access token and API key and requests the user's photos. Facebook verifies that these access token and API keys are valid and that it's okay to give over the user's photos, and the client can finally do its job of adding cats to the user's photos. So OAuth is a way to give programs access to a user's data without the program actually needing to know their password. It's actually a family of standards with different variations on the example that I just gave.